So this is why you're afraid to invest in real estate. But by the end of this video, you'll be ready to jump in and start investing. So make sure you watch until the very end so you don't make the same mistakes that I made. Like financing a new roof through a credit card. Yeah. Don't do that. But in this video, I'm going to break down the top concerns that I see most often about why people are afraid to start investing in real estate. And then near the end of the video, I'm going to talk about why you should consider investing in real estate, especially if you don't have a lot of money. But first, my first investment was a duplex in Boston. And this was my first time ever really getting into real estate. And I made so many mistakes, and I'm just gonna share a few of them with you today so you don't make these same kinds of mistakes when you get started investing as well. Also, make sure to comment down below what some of your top fears, some of your top concerns have been about investing in real estate. Tell me what's been holding you back. So let's get right into it now and start talking about the main concerns that most people have about investing in real estate. So let's get right into the first concern, and this one is being a landlord is too difficult. This is the number one concern I hear from people when they talk about investing in real estate and having rental properties. There are many ways to invest in real estate, but my personal choice is buy and hold and rent out. And so being a landlord is something that was completely new to me when I first became one. I never knew how to be a landlord, how to have tenants, what to do. I didn't know any of these things. I just kind of learned along the way. I worked with my real estate agent who helped me with some areas, but a lot of it was just kind of common sense and doing research on the best ways to handle certain situations. But I think one of the top fears about being a landlord that people have is that their tenant is going to trash their property, they're not going to pay their rent, or all of these other things that you see on TV or online, on YouTube or anywhere else about major or worst case scenarios. And what I can tell you is that this really comes down to when you're choosing your tenant. For example, in my case, I don't really like going through the screening process of tenants because that's just not my strong suit. So I have my realtor do this for all my rentals, and he finds the best matching tenants for what I'm looking for. And in my situation, perfect tenants for me are really young professionals, recent graduates that are now working. And in the Boston area, of course, you have a lot of young professionals that are working professional jobs. So it's a lot easier to choose a tenant like that. So that's really where it comes down to having someone like a real estate agent that really knows the local area, the local rental market very well, that can help you along the way with finding the best tenants for your property. And the other thing that I do as a landlord is I make sure to keep my properties as good as possible for my tenant. In fact, if I wouldn't personally live in the apartment how it is, then I'm not going to keep it for a tenant. I make sure that everything I do, any fixes that I make, anything like that is up to par with what I would expect if I were living in that same property. So really overall, it's just don't be a slumlord. Quality for me is one of the most important things that I focus on. I spend extra money just to make sure the quality is above where I would want it to be for myself. And I think this is a good way to keep your tenants happy, keep them paying, and keep them treating the property as well as possible. And so far, I've had pretty great luck with my tenants and doing that. And so moving on to the next concern that a lot of people have, and it's especially relevant today as the real estate market has been so hot, and a lot of people feel like we're at the height of the real estate market. But this concern is, what if the market crashes tomorrow? And this is one of the most, if not the most common concern that I see is, what if I buy a property today and the real estate market crashes tomorrow? And so I'm going to address this question after I talk about the other main concerns coming right up. And I'm going to make sure you have no doubts about what to do to make sure you don't lose money in the real estate market. The next concern that I see is maintenance is expensive. As a renter, you don't really have to worry about maintenance on your property because it's all up to the landlord to take care of. And that's one of the nice things about renting, but there's a secret. You're actually paying for the maintenance costs in your rent. See, whatever you pay in rent is going to pay for the property and going to pay for the maintenance. So it's not like the landlord is losing money on the apartment. So just because you're not paying for the broken sink or the broken toilet whenever it comes up, the landlord is making this money through your monthly rent. So I definitely argue that renting is definitely more expensive than owning and taking care of your property. And going on to the next one. This is one that is especially relevant today as well because of the crazy real estate market that we are in today. Real estate is too expensive. It takes too much money to buy. So a lot of people think that if they want to buy real estate, if they want to invest in real estate, they need 20 or 25% down payment to buy a property. And this simply is not true. And this could be one of the biggest things holding you back from buying real estate and investing. There are many programs out there that offer low down payment loans as little as 0%, 3%, or even 5%. So you could actually start investing with just a few $1,000s down payment. But using these programs, you do have to live in the property, which I would assume you would want to live in anyways if this is your first property. And the great thing about these programs is they can be used to finance properties up to 4 units, as long as one of the units is your primary residence. And this is called house hacking. And I made a whole video about this, which I'll link down below. But on top of these programs, there are some local programs that also offer down payment assistance that will pay for your entire down payment. But these vary across the country by state, by city, by even the bank. So you'll need to talk to a local bank about these programs to see if you can qualify for one as well. So coming up with a large down payment shouldn't be a reason that you're using to not buy real estate. And one of the last concerns that I hear from people is, what if I don't want to live in the area forever? Well, the good thing is you can hire a property manager to manage your property from anywhere in the world. So as long as your property is cash flowing properly, then this would not be a problem either. But the other thing I typically say is if it's a good time to sell and you could make some profit, you could always just sell the property and make some money on top of it. And then lastly, a lot of times people don't actually end up leaving the area as often as they think they might. And finally, to address the point I was talking about earlier about how to make sure you don't lose money if the market crashes the next day. Well, for me, in my opinion, I think buying and holding is one of the best ways to start building wealth when you have very little money. So when you're buying and holding, you're not really concerned about where the market is today or tomorrow. As long as you're planning to keep real estate long term, then the market always readjusts even if it takes a few years. For example, in 2008, when the market crashed, it took about 5 years for property values to rebound to where they were prior to the crash. And then every year since 2013, property values have just been shooting up. So that's why I find the buy and hold method one of the safest methods of investing in real estate. And the other great thing is if you are buying and holding and renting out your properties, then when the market crashes, most people turn to rentals when there's a downfall in the market. In fact, overall, rents tend to increase even when property values decrease. So rental income is much more stable than property values. So as long as you're still collecting rent every month on your properties, then you'll still be able to make your fixed monthly payment, and this shouldn't really be an issue. You just wait it out until the properties rebound. But then getting into it, this comes down to when you're buying the property. You want to make sure you're not overpaying for the property to begin with. This means you really need to either work with a real estate agent that knows the area well, or do a lot of research yourself about what the property values are worth in the area and what the rental incomes would be as well. So you want to make sure that the rental income that you're collecting on the properties are paying for the expenses of the property, say the mortgage and maintenance. So as long as the rental income is greater than the expenses, you should be fine. And next up, you want to make sure you have an emergency fund in place in case anything went wrong. I recommend having 3 to 6 months worth of your monthly expenses for the property saved up. This could be used for major renovations, major fixes that you may need to make, or if you happen to have a tenant that stopped making the rental payment for any reason, you'd be able to pay the monthly mortgage and not worry about losing the property. And so that's another way to insulate yourself in case there was ever an economic downturn or any problem like that. And one of the most important things is when there's a housing market crash, you never want to sell the property if you can avoid it. See, as I just mentioned, the market always recovers with time. Real estate prices will always get back to where they were and above because of inflation. So as long as you're able to make your monthly payments on your property and weather the hard times that may come, at the end of the day, you're still going to make money on the property. And so those are all the points that I have for what if the market crashes tomorrow. But to wrap up the video, I'm going to talk about why I think you should buy real estate and start investing today. And I'll talk about why I think real estate is the best way to start building wealth without a lot of money. So if you don't have a lot of money to invest in stocks, I think real estate is the best way to go. And this is personally my journey as well. I also have a video where I compare investing in the real estate market versus the stock market. So make sure to check that video out as well. I'll link it down below. But let's go through some of the top level points that I have for this. In real estate, you're more in control of the investment than you are in the stock market. In the stock market, you rely on CEOs to make the right decisions for the companies and hope that their value goes up. But you really have no control over this, and you just rely on what the CEOs of the companies do. But with real estate, you are the CEO. Next up, you can leverage other people's money, the bank's money. As I mentioned in this video, you can get low down payment programs where you can get as low as 0% down payment on a property that you can start investing in. This means you could buy $1 million property with less than $30,000. In the stock market, you have to have the full $1 million to buy $1 million worth of stock. And this is really powerful for creating wealth. For example, if you put 3% down on a $300,000 property, that's a $9,000 down payment. And let's say your property value only increased by 4% each year. That means in the first year of ownership, the property will have appreciated by $12,000. This alone gives you a $3,000 return in unrealized gains, a 133% return on your cash investment. This is all in the first year just by leveraging other people's money. And this is one of the reasons why I always recommend investing in real estate as soon as possible with a low down payment mortgage. It's very powerful. And in fact, just to give you some insight, the first duplex that I bought appreciates by more than $100,000 every single year. And I only used $20,000 down payment to buy this property 6 years ago. Of course, with maintenance costs and things of that nature over the last 6 years, I have more cash invested than that. But still, my total cash investment after everything is probably still about $40,000 or less. So when my property appreciates by over $100,000 every single year for the last 6 years, that really shows you how powerful leveraging other people's money can be. And then finally, the last big point about why you should start investing in real estate now is that there are some major tax advantages that go along with owning real estate. I've made a whole video outlining many of the tax advantages of home ownership, so check that video out now.